Excellent. So I have hit the record button. So we are officially live here for today's session of the 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge. I am your host, Rebecca Newman, the CEO and founder of the Grow Project, a training and business program where we integrate business, health and lifestyle. So some would say to have it all. I am joined today by the amazing Kate Kendall. Kate, the list of accolades got longer and longer the more and more I heard about you. As I mentioned previously, I got to observe you from afar, as the beauty of social media does. And now it is an absolute privilege to speak with you today. So thank you for your time. I'm going to read a couple of things because I don't want to miss the big ones. You are, of course, the co-founder and director of yoga at Flow Athletic, a yoga guru for Body and Soul magazine, a Sportlux blogger. And I guess the way I summarized it is I see you as a health industry absolute game changer from an entrepreneurial point of view. I think you are creating an amazing business in the health space and a real game changer in that space. So thank you very much for joining us on the line.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Rebecca. Absolute pleasure.
So tell me a bit about Flow Athletic. Let's start there.
Well, why don't I start at the beginning, because that's always a good place, I think, to start when we're going into the background, how we were conceived, created, formed, and why the space is here. I was working at a really traditional space in North Bondi called the Dharmashala, which is a really beautiful sort of sacred yoga space, but very traditional. And I would have this guy come to me every twice a week. His name was Ben, and he was training for an ultra marathon. And he asked me at one stage, could he get private lessons? And so I started going to his house twice a week instead of him coming to me at the Dharmashala. And he sort of started to ask me, after we formed a friendship, he was like, why don't you have your own studio? And I said all the usual things like, I don't have the money, I'm not ready, I'm not experienced enough, all those things that you're always going to tell yourself ultimately. And he sort of wasn't buying into any of it. And it happened just at the right time, because I was going to Canada with Lululemon, the amazing business that is Lululemon. I was asked by them to go over and be an ambassador with another girl from Melbourne, and we were thrown into this incredible conference in Whistler with 100 other ambassadors from the US and Canada. And they basically threw at us tools for being entrepreneurs in the fitness industry. And I was completely blown away, at their culture, which I found so inspiring, and B, just with all the tools that they'd given us. And so I came back and I said to him, I want to do it. I want to do it with someone that already kind of has a bit of expertise and knows what they're doing. And Ben had a lot of industry experience already. His background is in fitness and having gyms. And so ultimately it went from being me having a yoga room sort of this big, which houses sort of 80 people at a time on yoga mats, to then us kind of growing in our ideas and concepts and research. And I convinced him that yoga was, we were just about to 3 years ago start to ride this massive wave of yoga in Australia. And so he kind of bought in on that as well. And then we turned it into something that was really authentic to both of us together. So his background being fitness, mine being yoga, he started to give me personal training sessions. So the work that I was doing with him was benefiting him and his athletic pursuits, and vice versa. I found that my yoga practice was actually getting stronger through his cardio and strength training with me. So we then developed this business where our core philosophy is, we encourage people to do one yoga class for one strength class, for one fitness class, because we believe that is a well-balanced and really rounded workout. And aside from that, obviously, we're promoting that all the time because we believe that it works, and it works for the two of us. We're also, on the back of the whole Lululemon thing, that was something that we were both really inspired by, just that I think they really hit the nail on the head so well with community. And so just as much as we have group fitness classes here, for us, it's all about creating as many touch points as we can for members to connect because ultimately connection, I think that's why we're here. And so we do a lot of things that are based around community. We have challenges, we have Flow After Dark, which is yoga with a live DJ. We have masterclasses. Just, we're always enrolling people in the Flow Athletic team for City to Surf or the Canberra Half Marathon that was on the weekend. So as many opportunities as we can to get people together. That is, on one side, it's a really great retention strategy for us in business, but it's also more than that. It's about connecting people and having people feel a part of something.
And I think that's absolutely amazing. And I'd talk a little bit about that. When we were having our kind of pre-interview chat the other day, we kind of started to have a bit of discussion about not only the insights that you provide, but also your own business journey. So I trust it's okay today for us to talk about your experiences as a business person and also in the expertise. I would love you to talk about the culture you've created with your community and some of the programs you've created, because they're just wonderful. They're really focused, I think, on the end game of what I think you guys are about. And they're just inspiring to watch as a business person and somebody that wishes health upon the business community in particular. I just think they're amazing. So could you tell us a bit about the culture and how you've created it in the environment and the programs that you've created there at Flow?
Yeah, for sure. So from the very beginning, it was Betty and I always had the intention of creating that culture and that community. And we selfishly just wanted to be able to create a place where we'd make extra friends. So from the very beginning, we always wanted to have a challenge, like a signature challenge that people wanted to do, once a year or twice a year. And I think what appealed to us about having something like that was just the energy that it builds and the aspect of giving back. So for example, our signature challenge, if you will, or community event, we hold it twice a year and it's called 30 Days Clean. And so it's 30 days of basically training really well, eating very clean, close to the ground, unprocessed foods. We ask everyone to abstain from alcohol and caffeine, so those stimulants. And we don't say that alcohol or caffeine is, bad for you in moderation or balance. I want to make that very clear as well. It's just stepping back and being more mindful and noticing our relationship to those sorts of things. And then after the 30 days, going back into the world of consuming those sorts of things and just being more mindful and appreciating them as well. I think the whole element of appreciating and savoring is very yogic. And so I 100% encourage people to, if they're drinking, to be mindful and to enjoy and to savor. I love a glass of red wine, Shiraz, more than anyone. So that's one, that's 30 Days Clean. And during the 30 days, we have all sorts of events and workshops to keep people inspired and motivated, because, you can get into a thing with things like 30 days where, I have to give up this and I have to give up that. And you forget about all the great things you're doing. So, for example, week 1 of 30 Days Clean, we have what we call Inspo Panel. And Inspo Panel is where we get 3 or 4 people who really inspire us. And we put them on a panel and we ask them questions about their journey and their struggles and their hardships and their failures and their wins and what inspires them and what motivates them. So this last one in February, we had Greg Inglis from South Sydney Rabbitohs, who is just an incredible human being. Love him, salt of the earth. And then we've had Taria Pitt previously. We've had the girls from Style Runner. We've had newsreaders. So that's one of the events. And then another event that has just kind of blown up as well is called Flow After Dark. So that's a 90-minute yoga class. And I teach it, and it's with a live DJ. The DJ is actually from our community here at Flow Athletic. He's a member of ours. Something we're also really big on is supporting all the local businesses around us and individuals. And we started that in this room and grew out of the 80 yoga mats pretty quickly. So we headed up the road to Paddington Town Hall, and we've had it there for the past 3 times. And we took it out of Paddington in February, and we chose a secret location in Alexandria. And so it just keeps growing and growing. And actually next Wednesday, we've sold out. We're blown away. We've sold out all 300 tickets to Luna Park. So we're doing it there, and we've got big plans for Fly After Dark. And it's just, again, it's a great way for people to connect and to and to do something at the nighttime that doesn't necessarily involve a lot of alcohol or consumption. So it's all part of our kind of clean living motto, and providing opportunities to connect that don't necessarily involve alcohol. And what else do we do? Yeah, like I said, just the
I think they're really good examples of what kind of has caught my eye, and the yoga in the dark and the DJ side of things, and how you've evolved that. I just wanted to, really be able to take my hat off to you and say congratulations for doing something in an area which my experience of many other yoga, from afar, of many other yoga practices, and certainly before I found the style that suited me, was that they were very specific down their line. And I love being someone myself that is quite a fan of resistance and also functional movement. In addition to the particular style of yoga I practice, I love that you have it all in one place. I love the philosophy you have around integrating strength with fit, with yoga, and then continuing to innovate from there. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. And the environment you've created with the Luxe Day Spa feel, and all the different programs you're putting on, and clearly, it's working. You've got an amazing community of very active people who are tagging you all over here and talking about their experience with you, and your own Instagram following is large. You've got 30,000 people, and I can think for all amazing kinds of people. And so congratulations to you on all of your achievements. I would love to talk about, I do want to talk about your business journey, because it kind of came up in our discussion, but and we might let's just go there now. When I was looking at the business that you've created, you are creating a lot of classes. You've recently celebrated your 3rd birthday, and it sounds like it was a big milestone in terms of a reflective piece. A reflective piece on, what you've achieved in the last 3 years and where you're at personally, in your own lifestyle as a business person. You are running 7 days a week. You are up at 5:30. Sorry, I've got a bit of a breeze and my Post-it notes are falling. And I don't, you have so many amazing aspects. I didn't want to miss them, but you're running about 120 scheduled timetabled sessions a week, across the different areas, including the outdoor sessions of Flow X. And you're there at 5:30. And as you say, it is a style of movement which people are able to integrate in a contemporary way. And that is people like me who want to be moving at 5:30 in the morning and want to be doing it some days inside and some days outside. So perhaps you could share with us what it's like having the health orientation and knowledge that you have, and then building a business for the first 3, and perhaps some of the highlights and lowlights of what that journey's been like.
Sure. So again, I'll start at the beginning with that one. When we first opened Flow, I was going through a pretty tough time in that I was going through a breakup. I'd been engaged to someone, and I guess it happened at the best of times and the worst of times, because all of a sudden we were about to open this studio, and all of a sudden at the same time I was going through a bit of heartache and emotion. And anyone out there, everyone's had breakups and they know exactly how it feels. So I would often, my really great way of my coping mechanism, as I think many A-type overachieving women out there, which pretty much includes everybody listening, especially to this, is that you tend to overachieve and overdeliver and more when you're going through something like this. And this is particularly my way of dealing with it anyway. And so I was here sometimes, 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock when we were first opening, because we just wanted to make sure everything was cool and fine and there were no problems. And then quite often I was here until, 10 o'clock, especially in that first month and the first week. And on top of that, I was staying in a friend's house and friends' houses, moving around a little bit because I'd moved out of my apartment. And so very quickly, and then I guess add on top of that the load of people coming into the studio, and we held a lot of sort of media events to really drive it and get the word out there. And so amongst all of that, I was having to be kind of very up there and out there and happy and life's great and look at our business. And I guess inside I was really kind of struggling, to be honest. And that can take its toll. And so after about the first year of business, that slowed down a lot more in terms of my hours, and I got a little bit more balance. And I certainly wasn't there at 4:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night for sure. But I was still teaching a lot of classes, and I guess I got to a point where I was burnt out and I felt like a fraud. There was this really clear moment I have, and I just felt like it was in Shavasana at the end of a class one night, and I sort of put everyone into Shavasana. I was sitting there, and I usually use that time to meditate, and it just dawned on me that my mind was crazy, my heart was racing, I wasn't in the room. Physically I was, but mentally I wasn't. I thought, I am teaching people for a living to slow down and to be mindful and to be conscious, and I was so far from that. I might have looked healthy from the outside, but inside I was dying. I stopped menstruating. I lost lots of weight. I wasn't nourishing. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't practicing yoga, and yoga had really, and still is, my medicine. Mm-hmm. It's that thing that keeps me sane. It keeps me on track. And it's taken me out of some dark places in my life. And I wasn't doing that at this time. So I was fortunate enough to go and I took myself home to the country for the Christmas holidays and spent some time with my family, which is really nice. And then I thought, I really got to do something about this. So I went and saw Anthea from Ovio, and she was brilliant. She was excellent. She gave me a really great eating plan, and more than anything else, she was just that woman who understood, and, she's got a business of her own. And so that was incredible. Mm. And then on top of that, I started to devise my own kind of methods and tools and techniques for being more present and being more mindful, which I'm just starting to use now for my own online program that I'm developing. So I guess in a way, my main message now has come from that mess. My main message now is all about, every time I teach a class, the first thing I do is, connect with your breath, slow it down. When we slow down the breath, we're slowing down the beat of the heart, we're slowing down the brain waves, and we're becoming more present. So in a beautiful way, that's given me a really stellar, clear message. So no regrets at all. I've learned so much being in this business, and our first 6 months was all about being reactive to things. Things would come up that we just had absolutely no idea would come up. And Benny and I would just be like, okay, so how are we going to deal with this? So we learned so much, and we're still learning so much, and we've still got a lot to learn, but we're getting, I guess our number one thing has been, if we want to be organized and if we want to grow the business, and if we want to do really incredible things, we need to have all our systems really in place. And we're very, very fortunate in that we have an incredible team. And again, with the team, there's been a lot of learnings and, sometimes in the beginning, not really getting the right fit. And it wasn't until we workshopped with some of our peers and some of our mentors, this really great system for employing the right people with the right values and the right sort of behavioral anchor points that we can then set benchmarks for, that we found the right team, and we're in a really great place. Our team is our family, and they're incredible, and they're everything, and they know more about the business than we do, and I'm just so glad that we have them. They're so incredible. So we're lucky that we can step back from doing some of the day-to-day stuff. Like I've stepped back from teaching so many classes, which is taxing physically. And, not only does that give them more opportunity, but it allows us to work on bigger plans now and bigger picture.
I think it's a wonderful way for people to look at it as an example, because a lot of people, if I'm not teaching, then my business isn't going to grow. And I think a lot of people can look at what you're doing as an amazing example of how you've been able to continue to create an amazing culture and a stimulated community, and the team that you're building around you of mentors, of advisors, of friends, of in all the different facets of your life. And it sounds like 3 years in, it's feeling very different now for you.
Very different. I feel more confident. I also feel like it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay to handle things to other people and actually empower team to do more, because I only know so much. And quite often, you know, my team, especially my yogis, they are so hungry and they're so keen to develop that they're doing tons of workshops that I actually don't have time to do. So ultimately, they're just developing into better yoga teachers than I am. So, you know, giving them more classes is a no-brainer. Yeah.
So tell me then, you must come across a lot of ambitious people in your community. What do you think their top 3 challenges are in fueling themselves?
In fueling themselves, not giving themselves enough time to rest, not making time to inspire themselves or do the things that really inspire them. And sometimes just forgetting that mission, like their purpose and why they're doing what they're doing. You know, you can get lost in a lot of clutter and day-to-day and stress that you lose sight of the bigger picture. But stress is a big one. I mean, I feel like we are in business getting more and more conscious, more and more aware, more and more mindful, but you know, there's still a long way to go. And I just feel like stress is a big one, and we allow things to stress us too much, and it's doing all sorts of things, especially for us women, like, you know, adrenal fatigue, and mainly adrenal fatigue, but that stress, I think, is a main one that we need to address and be consciously, collectively, all of us together, really aware of.
Yeah, and I think that was why, as a business training program, I wanted to start this discussion in the challenge about fuel, and really that awareness piece for people to understand about what they're doing. And that's what our printable, Kate, goes exactly through. And it's, I know you've been part of Anthea's community of cleansers before and contributed around movement to those as an expert. And literally, you know, this list down the side, it's not rocket science. It's things like chewing, going to the toilet, eating, and it's those basics. And it's literally designed, and everyone can download that from our challenge page. But it's literally about bringing that awareness around what is it that you are doing. And because I find with the Grow Project, they're talented, really, really talented. They're the smartest women in Australia. And they have an amazing toolkit. Most of the stuff that would serve them well, they were doing when they were in their early 20s. They have a health awareness. They like to be fit. They know what fit feels like. But somewhere along the lines, they got busy. And all of those little habits really dropped away. And they didn't mean for it to happen, but it's what happened for a lot of them, and then they don't know where to next, and how can I have both? So I have enjoyed hearing your story and your insights. I would love to know, what are your top 5 fuel sources for yourself?
Okay, top 5 fuel sources would be movement. And by movement, yeah, sure, definitely yoga is one of them, but I'd probably put that in another point. I don't want to save that one. So movement, for example, strength classes. I love strength class. It makes me feel strong. I feel really empowered by it. And I also, here at Flow Athletic, doing a strength class, it's a really great opportunity for me to connect with members and to have those conversations. Like, I learn so much from our members. I'll have a conversation with someone in between sets, and I'll figure out that, like, last week I spoke to one of my members, and he works up the road at Paddington church, and he works with underprivileged children, and that was incredible. So that fuels me and excites me and inspires me, doing strength classes. Yoga, definitely. It's as much physical exercise as it is, well, mentally it's gold, and that always keeps me inspired. And, you know, for me, it's a form of creativity as well, because when I'm planning my sequences for classes, you know, I teach in a way that I'm always working on what's that peak pose, what's that pose that we're going to work towards. So I guess putting a sequence together when I'm practicing really helps me to be creative. That's, I guess, a creative release for me. What else? Fuels, nourishing, close to ground, close to earth, clean food. I have a bit of a sweet tooth, so I have to really watch that one, that it doesn't sabotage me too often. Being around people who give me a really good belly laugh. Like, I've got this friend, one of my best friends, his name's Anthony Macca, and he makes me laugh so much. He makes me laugh more than anyone else on the planet, and I always know when I need a good Macca fix because he'll give me a good belly laugh. What else nourishes? I love watching people who are living passionately, who are living on purpose. You know, I'm a really big fan of Danielle Laporte. She wrote a book called The Desire Map. You're familiar with her?
Yeah, but I don't know if everyone else would be.
So she wrote a book called The Desire Map, and she's all about setting goals with soul. So she kind of really changed or tipped goal setting around for me. So I think goal setting is wonderful, but something always felt a little bit cold about it. It's like, do this, tick it off by this date. Mm-hmm. And so what she says is, set goals, awesome, but how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel when you run the marathon? How do you want to feel when you get married? How do you want to feel when you get the promotion at work? And it just makes so much sense to me, because now I use that every day when I wake up in my meditation. How do I want to feel today? So I've got, core values and core desired feelings like love and light and joy and passion. And I'll just infuse one of those into my day. Like, how do I want to feel today? And so she's been really inspiring for me. I'm also flicking on a TED Talk whenever I need a little bit of inspiration, or reading a book. And then stillness. I think stillness is that thing that's the most underutilized tool that we have today for fuel, for nourishment, and for productivity. And I really do believe that when we get home at the end of the day and we feel like we've been productive, when we feel like we've focused on those few things we really need to get done, we feel more fulfilled. Because how many times do you get to the end of the day and it still happens to me often, and I've been pulled in 1,000 different directions because I haven't created those boundaries, and I've done everything for other people or for myself, but not given them enough attention. And you're scattered and you're in 1,000 different directions. You get home and you go, I did a lot today, but I didn't actually achieve anything. So I think stillness really and when I say stillness, I mean meditation, or I mean lying on the floor like I probably will after this in Supta Baddha Konasana with the soles of my feet together, knees out wide, and just do nothing and just breathe. It's kind of like you just let yourself catch up. And I guess the other thing which is similar to that is just mindfulness. So making it a practice to be more mindful more often. And I've got this thing I'll show you. I recently went to a retreat in New Zealand. I've been a couple of times now. It's called Aroha, and it's the most magical place I've ever been. And it's a beautiful, beautiful retreat on the South Island, just out of Queenstown. And they teach you a lot about mindfulness and, just encourage you to be in nature, which is also very fueling. And they give you these stickers when you leave to remind you to take the practices away. And so it's just this little bee, which is their logo. And you can pop it on all sorts of things like your phone, your laptop, all those places you need to be reminded to be mindful. So that's a good little tool. Yeah.
I love that. I am sorry, I'm just getting a tiny bit of feedback. Is there any other area that we might have missed in terms of what fuels you in business?
That we may have, missed?
Yeah, is there anything we might have missed in that list of what fuels you? Is there anything that you would add to that in terms of what fuels you in the business space?
Mm-hmm. Yep, having mentors. So someone who can bounce things off, and I'm lucky I've got Benny for that, and he's got me for that. God, I'm sure there are plenty. We've come to that 3 o'clock time slot where it's time for meditation, and I need to refuel with inspiration myself. And staying innovative and fresh and curious. Listening to our members and whatever business you're in, listening to your customers and your employees, being open. Yeah.
I love everything you've taken us through, and I love how open you've been. And it looks like a clean t-shirt on, which is very recognizable. So people will see them. Love it. Thank you. People will see them all around now and know that they are yours. And you mentioned breath, and I know that you've offered everyone who has jumped on the challenge through our web events page on our website. We're going to send them the information about learning how to breathe, which seems one of the most amazing things to be sending to people. But unfortunately, it's not something I forget and not do that well. And those skills that we first came out of the womb with, we're just not utilizing those skills for different reasons. So I'm going to email that out to everybody. So if you haven't already jumped on the challenge, please jump on our website, and we'll pop the link in the live chat box, and you'll find the information on our email you that information. Kate, tell me about your yoga specifically. I guess that my experience of yoga was that probably before I had children, I was quite transactional, I would say, in my yoga. I was looking very much for the movement side of things. I was more what you would call, perhaps I was doing it for an event. And so that was my first experience of yoga, but I didn't really connect with it. And what I've since learned is that there is a lot of styles of yoga, and we are going to talk about yoga again, a different style of yoga tomorrow. But tell me about the yoga that people will find at Flow, and just a bit about those different types of yoga.
Okay, sure. Yeah, there are so many different kinds of yoga. I think that you got to find the one that really suits you for what you need. Like, what's your intention? Is your intention to slow down? Is it to be more still? Is it also to get a little bit of a workout? They're obviously all going to be incredible for the mind. So, just very quickly, very briefly, like we do whole days on this in the yoga teacher training, but we've got this one big umbrella kind of yoga called hatha yoga, and underneath all of that is kind of everything that we see in Western world today. You've got your vinyasa, which is what we do here at Flow. I'll talk a little bit about that. You've got your Iyengar, you've got your Ashtanga, Vini yoga. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of yoga. So I encourage people just to go out there and do some research and look at studios around them and find the teacher and the studio that really works for them. The kind of yoga that we practice here at Vinyasa is the one that I first started with, and it's Vinyasa, and it's essentially linking your breath to movement. So I love it because it becomes that moving meditation where I always encourage people to think of this kind of yoga as not just about the final posture that you're in, but the journey and the space between the postures. So the transition from your high plank to your low plank and feeling the strength in that, the transition from your low plank to your up dog. And so it really does become, the more practice you become with it, the more of a moving meditation. And sure, when you're first starting it, you went to it for, an event when I first started, and purely out of vanity as well. Like I wanted to get longer, leaner arms, and I'd spent a year in the UK doing absolutely nothing. Plus I was on antidepressants, and I hadn't really done any exercise for a long time. And I pretty much thought that I was going to cope by being on these pills. And so my first yoga class, I walked into this space in North Bondi that I talked about before, Dharmashala, where I started teaching a few years later. And I walked in and I was like, whoa, I do not belong here. Like, I grew up in the country, riding my BMX and getting dirty in the dam. And all of a sudden I'm in this space where there's like deities on the wall and incense burning, and people around me breathing funny. And after, I felt clumsy through it all. I didn't know what I was doing. Please know that if you're starting yoga, be prepared to feel like Bambi. Be prepared to feel like a baby giraffe or a baby elephant, because it's going to happen. And it happened for me for at least a month. But after that first class, I was walking home to my apartment in Bondi, and for the first time in a really long time, I started to feel something, and that it was just a flicker, but I was like, oh, I haven't felt this in a really long time, this feeling. That's the key word, is feeling, because I'd been so numb for so long. And I thought, is it the yoga? So I went back, and it's the breathing, it's the stretching, it's the mindfulness, and more, it's like just things started to peel away, and I unlocked feelings, and, the amount of times that I cried, and just all this juicy sort of stuff came up. So that's, I guess, I fell in love with Vinyasa yoga. It did give me the movement, and it did give me leaner arms, and a more toned body. And it was the one sort of form of exercise, if you want to call it exercise, that I really stuck to, and that has just happened to be incredible for my mind as well.
Mentioned the spaces between, not only because that is a very strong link to your blog, but that I think in spending more time. So I've personally been doing yoga now consistently for about 5 years, and it's amazing. Like you said earlier about the mental side of things, which I didn't expect. I rocked up at a Japanese yoga therapy class about 8 weeks after I'd had my first baby, not in great shape. I rocked up for physical recovery, and for all kind of convenience reasons. It was round the corner from my mother-in-law's, which meant that she could take, and it was the very first thing I did at 8 weeks. And I remember walking in, and the lady's like, okay, so you had a baby 8 weeks ago. Did you do any yoga beforehand? I'm like, no. She's like, okay, this is really a beginner's class. I'm like, okay. And she said, but I can see you've made a lot of effort to be here. So if you do one thing today, anyway.
Make it shavasana.
Well, it was kind of, if you just squeeze your butt today, then we'll all be happy, and I'll make sure that you're safe. And she's like, and we kind of had that arrangement, was that, and it became very quickly, I guess, much more than about the physical side of things. And it is those spaces between, which I've learned to appreciate immensely in the yoga, that the poses are important, but it's the pieces between the poses, it's the breath, and it's that moment where I get the awareness about where I'm at, and that gratitude for, wow, my body's doing well. And I think the other thing is, Kate, I find when I'm actually doing really well, and when I'm on fire, and like a bit like at the moment actually, and I go to the mat, and I get a reflection, and I get that time and that space on the mat, just laying there at the start, or sitting there at the end, and going, yeah, actually my body's moving. I can twist, I can, all these things. And then other days it's just like, oh, it's not working today. And it's like, okay, well, today I feel like a heavy elephant, and that's where I'm at today. So, and I think it gives me a lot more choice, because I then have that moment to sit. And it's just, and I love it. But it's very different style to the first one, which was probably 10 years ago, which was just really transactional for me. So I'm really, you've been able to mention breath. You've been able to talk about the pieces in between, been able to talk about movement as an incredible source of fuel, and people to really try different things and see what it can feel like.
I think the one other thing I'd mention with that is the mental resilience. That's the big, I guess, game changer, is that, you can be, I always say that yoga teaches you grace under pressure. And, you can be in these really unfamiliar postures, and it feels challenging, and it feels hard, and you start to get really hot in the body, and your muscles start to give way. But there's such merit in, unless something's hurting, of course, you come out of it, but there's merit in holding and choosing to breathe through and practice patience that you take with you way off the mat. And there's another really common saying that we have in yoga, is that the real yoga starts when you want to come out of the posture. Because where do you go in those places? Where do you go here? Do you go to, oh, I really hate her, why is she making me do this posture? Or, oh, I'm going to really distract myself and think about food that I'm going to eat when I get off the mat, or the things that I have to do. We all kind of are really good at distracting ourselves. So yoga really encourages you to stay with it, and to lean into the sensations, and to breathe into them, because that's where all the magic happens. And of course, the yoga starts again when you leave the mat. It's not just about what you're doing on the four corners. It's like, how can you take your yoga with you? Because it's all really easy for us to get to yoga. The cool thing about yoga is you don't have to talk to anyone, right? So you get to yoga, and I'm perfect, and I'm so mindful right now, and I've just come out of shavasana. I feel beautiful and bliss, and I'm amazing, and I'm looking at that person, and they're in the same space, and it's like I'm just smiling. And then you roll up the mat, and you walk out the door, and one of your teachers says something like, oh, can you cover my class now? I have to go home, when you're expecting to go to dinner. Or if you're a parent, which I'm not, but I hope to be one day, you get home and the kids have just trashed the place. It's like, where's your yoga in that? Where's your yoga in those situations? That's another little element of gold that yoga gives you.
Yeah, and the more you practice the yoga, the more I think you learn about how amazing it is. I certainly didn't have that appreciation when I started, and I'm sure you don't expect everybody to rock up on their first day and understand all of the amazing ancient wisdom that sits behind. But it gives you an amazing toolkit to go into those situations and to make a choice. And when you arrive home and things aren't cool, or the person asked you to cover their scenario and you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't really want to do that, I think it gives you that ability to have that choice and take that breath. And also my experience when I say for lock-in retreats, or that I started putting myself first more, was that I would come home and I just was different. I was a different being, and my children and my family responded to that. And the calmness in the house when you're able to be yourself is amazing. And yoga has given me amazing tools in that space.
Good.
Now, I guess you've covered a lot about so many amazing areas and shared with us your own story, and thank you very much for that. If you had to summarize what the opportunity is of the fuel source of movement, what would you say the greatest opportunity for people is?
On the fuel source of movement.
So by people moving regularly, what do you see the greatest opportunity for people is, particularly for people who have stopped moving?
It's a great way to release built-up tension. And when you're releasing that built-up tension, it has a knock-on effect of affecting everyone around you. So ultimately, it's making you healthier and more productive. And like I said before, productivity leads to fulfillment, and I think that's what we all want.
Absolutely. And nothing can grow when it's under stress, hey? Like when you've got that pressure and you don't have an outlet to actually get it out and to let those thoughts get out of the mind and they just sit there, then you're actually very difficult to grow, which is awesome. Now, people can catch you. You've mentioned mindfulness, and I know you've got your Mindfulness May coming up, so people can catch that information on Flow Athletic. And you've also got, can you tell us a bit about your clean break? Because I think for people, with the Sherlaw's methodology, which is the business guys that we work with at the Grow Project, one of the first things they do, and which came up in conversation with Dwyer this morning about planning out how you spend your time, is that they start with holidays. They start with green days, as they call them. They have a methodology called red, blue, black plus green. And the green is about culture, and whether it's culture days for your organization or culture days for yourself. And that's whether that's a holiday, whether that's a retreat. For me, block booking those things in, paying for them, because currency, dollars is the currency that are familiar and raised on trading in. Locking those things in can be amazing. And you've got an absolutely astronomical clean retreat coming up. So can you tell us about that, in case that's a way that people want to connect in with you?
Yeah, sure. So for Flow Athletic, Benny and I are hosting, we've done retreats before, yoga retreats, but it'll be the first one that Benny, the other co-founder, and I are hosting together. And it's in Bali, and it's for members and non-members alike. And it's running from the dates are the 28th of May until I think the 2nd of June. And so you'll come over and you'll practice, you'll do yoga and fitness based on our philosophy of one yoga for one strength, for one fitness. But other than that, I'll be teaching a lot of mindfulness and meditation. Outside of that, though, it's a holiday, so we're not saying don't go and eat food that's not clean. We're saying you're on holiday, let's do that, let's enjoy it, and let's learn how to have a really good time, but not come back at the end of a break and feel like you need another one. Not come back at the end of a break and feel like, oh my gosh, I've drunk so much and I've eaten so much rich food that now I need another holiday. So really using the holiday to fuel.
I think that's fantastic. And people can get all of the information about your After Dark, about your amazing FlowX that you're doing in the park, either in groups or in the, is it Flow 4, I think, that you do in the small groups, and the amazing equipment that you're running with that. And there's heaps of videos on your site of Flow Athletic. People can catch you on Instagram as Active Yogi, where you share your own journey and your lifestyle and all of those kind of elements, and connecting with you that way as well. So thank you again, Kate, for joining us on 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge. We look forward to having more engagements with you with the Grow Project in the future. And thank you for sharing your time.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's been fun.
Thank you. So for everyone that hasn't already popped their details in for the challenge, please jump over to our website, and we will send you through Kate's freebie around breathing, as well as all the freebies from our contributors. We would love to see you join us on other calls this evening. We are chatting resilience with Lynn Worsley, and tomorrow we have 5 interviews with all different kinds of experts. We are talking more about yoga. We're talking about self-care. We are talking about red, blue, black and green, and what that has to do with business, and coloured pens, and what that has to do with business as well. So join us tomorrow. Grab the full event schedule from RebeccaNewmanOnline.com.au/events, and follow us and follow our journey of the Grow Project on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. But for now, ciao, ciao. Have a great day.